welcome you to another Realm Global Community Meetup. This time we're discussing Realm Swift, KeyPath filtering, and AutoOpen. So very lucky to be joined today by both Diana and Eric. Diana is in Barcelona. Eric joins us from New York. And I'm Shane McAllister, and I am the lead developer advocate for Realm. And very happy to have you all here. So not one, but two presenters today, which is superb. A couple of things from me just before we get kicked off into the actual presentations today, a bit of housekeeping as it were. We have another meetup in July 22nd that will be delivered by developer advocate here, Mohit Sharma, on Android Realm co-jam session with Kotlin. So this is going to be a very free and open session working on essentially getting started with Realm and Kotlin. And Mohit has already posted some blogs on our developer hub discussing this. So this time around, he's using this as a live jam session to present that. And that is on July 22nd. This is obviously kind of, a quiet month for us in terms of our meetups because we have MongoDB.live. This is our largest event that we deliver annually. This time, like last year, it's going to be virtually online. We do hope that in 2022, we'll be back in person in New York. But on July 13th and 14th, we do hope that our community can join us in this free event. We have a whole track of talks, including many talks dedicated just to mobile and to mobile developers. So we do hope that you can join us. It's free registration. Just search for MongoDB.live. Sign up there and do join us on those 2 days, which we hope will be superb. I'm very, very much looking forward to it. So that's why our meetup calendar is slightly quiet in the next month, because we're all working towards MongoDB.live. However, rest assured, after MongoDB.live, we have that event with Mohit, and we'll be adding more throughout the summer. And we intend to continue to do these as much as possible. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This is the Bevy platform, very familiar to those of you, we all spend our world in Zoom and online at the moment. You can see, and some of you participated already in the chat on the right-hand side. So while Diana and Eric are presenting, I'll be looking after the chat on the right-hand side. So hopefully ask any questions that you might have in there. Do introduce yourselves, say hello. We love to see where our community are from. And during the presentations, it'll only be Diana and Eric presenting. All the microphones otherwise will be muted. If you're brave enough and happy to, we'd love for you to join us afterwards for the Q&A. So if you do want to ask your question personally, I'm more than happy to turn on facilities that you can open out your microphone and indeed your camera and let you ask those questions of Diana and Eric and myself, perhaps included, at the end as well too. We've got two really good presentations coming up for you. Each of them is about 15 minutes or so. And so we'll have plenty of time towards the end of our meetup to go through a Q&A session with you all. So do any questions you might have, please chat in the sidebar. And if you want, at the end, we can turn on your cameras and microphones and get you on board as well too. A couple of more things. If you haven't already joined, and I'm assuming that you're here, so you're probably a member of the Realm Global Community, but you may not have chosen that tick box on the way in RSVPing for this event. So do join the Realm Global Community at live.mongodb.com. Please participate in our community on our forums and our developer hub. So on our forums, we're incredibly active. Both the advocacy team and the engineering team are answering questions there. Of course, we're out in the community as well too, on Stack Overflow and GitHub. But we really like to build our community on forums. So on developer.mongodb.com or indeed forums.realm.io will get you there as well too. And also on Twitter. We love to engage on Twitter with any questions that you might have as you're getting to grips with Realm, building your own apps as well too. So please join us there. Anybody who has joined on the Realm Global Community will instantly get notifications as we add new events to our calendar. So it's a great way to keep abreast of all of the developments that are happening with us here in MongoDB and more particularly our Realm and Realm community as well too. So the other thing about Twitter and participation is that, you know, we love this and we like that you can amplify to our community what's going on in these meetups. For those of you that want to be with an opportunity to get some cool swag, some t-shirts and some face masks, please tweet at Realm with your comments and thoughts about this meetup, and we'll pick a couple of random lucky tweets to maybe get some swag sent your way. So by way of appreciation of your time with us today, everybody's time is precious, but we do enjoy and having you on board to learn about what we're building here at Realm. So that's all from me from terms of housekeeping, etc. I'm going to hand over the platform now essentially to Eric. Eric's going to take us through his portion of the presentation. We're going to swap over to Diana. And then, as I said at the beginning, we'll culminate with a Q&A session for all parties here. So really looking forward to this. Thank you so much for coming, everybody. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. So Eric, the floor is open to you.
Good. So as I said earlier, everyone, hello. My name is Eric, and I am a software engineer on the Realm Cocoa team. And today I would like to talk about a feature that I've been working on, and it's called change notification for KeyPath filtering. So think of today as sort of like a development first look. It's a developer diary of something that's still being worked on. So my goal today is sort of show some color, give some commentary, keep you all in the know, finger on the pulse, and let's have some fun with it. So I'm sure that some of you might be able to tell already what this feature might do. But first, I really want to touch on how notifications work right now, how they work today, how some of you have already probably been using it, but also for people who have never used Realm before, I want to just add a baseline foundation so we're all talking with the same vocabulary and understanding. And while we're getting that baseline, I want to point out a handful of problems that you may have already encountered, right? And if you haven't encountered them, that's great. I kind of want to prime it, put it on your radar so you can either preempt it or think about it and think about how you might use this feature, because that's the important part of this talk, right? That's the third bit. It's what is KeyPath filtering for change notifications, how it works, how you might use it, and you know what I've been working on. Last but not least, kind of want to touch on the future iterations, right? How are we setting up this feature to develop in the future? Where is our mind going? What can we do with it? And also, cannot forget this part. It's a work in progress. We're taking feedback, and so very much would like to hear about your thoughts and hear your influence on what the feature might look like in the future. So without further ado, let's begin on how notifications work right now. So let's clarify what I mean, because in iOS, there's different kinds of notifications. I'm not talking about a push notification. This is a database, right? A lot of attention is given to writes, reads, transactions, configurations, persistence, all of, because that's what a database does. But all of that is for naught if we don't know what's happening in the database as a developer. So we need notifications. We need change notifications of what's happening. And those are the notifications I'm talking about, right? So you have your object, you have your results, your list, what have you. Something about it changes, and you need to react, right? Perhaps you need to react with some sort of logic, but 9 times out of 10, I'm imagining it's a UI update, right? You have all this data, but it's important to show the user. You need to know when you change the UI. And so let's go through basic use where we have a list on the right side of the screen. You can see we're updating the UI, showing a bunch of different entries. And so on the first line, we've got the realm, which you've seen to get the database file. You get your objects, all the magic has happened, but to help show what's happening on the UI, our entry point for the notification is observe. This is the all-important method which you have been calling, or which you would call, to return a notification token, right? And that notification token right there will fire this block right here, most important argument to this observe call whenever a property is changed. So as an aside, for anybody who hasn't used Realm before or is getting into it, one of the common notification pitfalls I see beginners make is when they return this notification token, you have to hold on to the strong reference of it, or else the callback will not fire when a change occurs. So very often I'll see maybe a beginner developer will create their token, assign it to something in that scope, leave that scope, lose the token, and then wonder, hey, why isn't my callback firing? I thought that this callback fires whenever a change is made. So you got to hold on to the token, right? Now, that's neither here nor there. It's just sort of a common theme that I've sort of seen with notification tokens for people just starting with Realm. But this callback, I really want us to think about this callback, right? This is the important part. So we've got this callback as the parameter or as the argument. And let's think, when does this callback execute? So I've sort of said generally that it's whenever a property changes, right? But let's drill down into this question. This is what we're going to talk about for a bit. And the answer, right, most technically correct, I suppose, is on any property change, right? With an asterisk, of course. This is software. There's always an asterisk. So that's why it's there. And we're going to talk about that asterisk because that's the important part. So we have on any property change. Let's play with this. Let's discover what's happening. So consider this example. We have a person object, has an ID, first name, last name, age. Great, par for the course example. So knowing what we know now, if a person's first name changes, that callback will execute. Last name, callback will execute. Very straightforward. Let's keep going. Let's add one more property. All right, it's a property dogs, which is a list. So we now have 5 properties. Anytime a dog is added, removed, reassigned, what have you, that callback will fire, okay? But what happens for dogs.name? Okay, that's a 6th property that we're now observing. Dogs.age, okay, 7, but I thought we just added 1 property. Let's keep going. Suppose that dogs has a list of toys, and those toys have a list of something else. And now, when we thought there were just 5 properties on one object we were observing, this can go up to dozens. It can get out of hand. It can be unintuitive. And if we have 100 objects where we're observing 10 properties as we thought, it can potentially balloon up into thousands of properties with millions of different objects, depending on how complex your object graph can get. So let's sort of visualize that and see how that works. So in this example, it might not be a huge deal, right? We have a company. That company consists of employees. It also has products. Let's assume I'm an iOS developer where I'm showing a directory of employees, okay? And we have a name, maybe some of their certifications. Whenever an employee is added, whenever information about them change, that's pertinent information for the end user I want to show them, okay? If a product is added and it refreshes the UI, it's not a huge deal. My logic within the callback is probably very generalized. It can probably handle anything. It's expecting anything. There aren't going to be too many executions of that callback that I consider unnecessary. Not a big deal, right? But that's not exactly how object graphs and various schemas work in the real world. They can get extremely complex. I've seen some major schemas for logistics applications where you might have, dozens and hundreds of classes all creating one big giant complex circular web, where if you're observing one object, you might unknowingly be firing execution callbacks for something way down in the corner. So an example with the employee directory is I'm not going to be caring about orders from accounts that are coming in every second or something, like that. Maybe my logic is a little bit more geared to a specific part of the app. Maybe it's becoming difficult to debug because that execution is, being fired for large, like unrelated background thread writes. And you start to lose a bit of control and granularity. And that's what I sort of want the developer to have, is we want you to be able to dictate when and where that callback is happening. And so in this very next picture, this is actually a picture of an iOS developer going crazy because they're losing control over when their notifications are firing. And they're just, trying to do a surgical change with a major hammer. And so on the next slide, well, actually, I have to wait for the next slide to load because there's also a performance implication going on here, right? When the number of properties and objects which could potentially fire and be observed increases exponentially, you might actually find yourself having that spinner last a little bit longer than it should be. You might be finding a bit of performance snag. And that's actually one of the more important optimizations I think that will come out of this feature and that I'm really caring about, because I mean, like, the end user doesn't like the spinner, right? It sort of adds up to various things. Making your app that much faster is, that much more of a win. I'm looking at the spinner right now, and it's making me angry because it's been up for like 10 seconds. We have to move on immediately. But I want you to think about these problems, right? Where on some schemas and object graphs, you might be losing some of that control, that granularity, and the performance implications. That's a big deal. And so with those two things in mind, as what we're trying to solve, we're introducing the KeyPath filter for observations. Now, the simplest way I could probably put it is you pass in a KeyPath, and the callback will only execute for changes on those KeyPaths. So let's take a look at our API. This is the observe function, which we looked at earlier and which you've probably seen before. And what I am adding is this parameter right here, KeyPath, which is an optional array of string, defaults to nil. So this is a non-breaking change. You're not going to be compelled to put this in your app whatsoever. If it's working, that's great. If you want it, it's there. And the usage effectively is you call observe, and I'm looking at let token equal results.observe. You effectively pass in the KeyPath that you want. Any change on that KeyPath will fire the callback. If it's outside of that KeyPath, no more unnecessary callback. So in the first example that fires a notification, if you change the person's first name that's on our KeyPath, do something will be hit. That callback will be fired. On the second example, does not fire the notification. If the person's age changes, that callback is not fired. We do not care about that. It's not relevant to our logic. It's not relevant to our UI. It's not relevant to our end user. You now have that ability to parse. So let's apply this to the web of stuff going on, the class, the schema, this object graph earlier. So now I'm an iOS developer, and I'm showing various orders to like a foreman on a factory line or salesperson for a particular account in a company. And we have a big giant list of orders. It could be, thousands, where like a spinner is potentially in play. And I don't care about the maintenance reports. I don't care about certifications for employees. I don't care what's happening in the factory. God knows that factory probably has tons of different lists of all various different things that are not relevant to my orders right now. So if I'm using this new feature, this new API, what I would do in let token equal results.observe, I'm choosing accounts.orders.status because I care about the status of these particular orders, and I care about the orders collection itself. So if we look at the first example where it fires a notification, we have account.orders.status equals filled. I care about that, right? We're going to let that user know that the status has changed. Do I care about a particular name of an account changing? No, I don't. It's not relevant to me. It's going to muddle everything. It's something that it's unnecessary and I don't want it. And name would not fire the notification. It's not part of our callback. One other very important thing to touch on that we're working on is SwiftUI API. We want all of our features, not just this feature, to work as well and seamlessly as possible with SwiftUI. It is very important to us. We like it. We want it. We want the developer experience to be as easy as possible. And using SwiftUI does that. We need to be a part of that. And the API for this will also take in a KeyPath for realm results, and will sort of look like this. This is as lightweight as I want to get it. I want to show you all so you can keep that in mind. So recap of everything I just talked about. Simplest way to think about it: you pass in a KeyPath, you choose when the callback is executed, you get more control, you're sidestepping a potential performance issue, getting that spinner as short on screen as possible, and that's huge goal. So last but not least, where is this feature gonna go? Where can it go? How are we thinking about it? Get a glimpse into the mind of how we're going. So this is how we see it. The very first release, which is what I'm working on right now, is going to have the string-based API. So you pass in KeyPaths with age, you write age in a string. The place we want to take it next is the Swift KeyPath. Apple has it, they give it to us, it's in Swift, we're going to use it, and you get a little bit more compiler safety, it's a little bit easier, you're not going to have as much bit rot. It's where we want to go next. Now, some hazy future things. Everyone, keep in mind, these are still in idea phases. This is a living, breathing feature. Give us your feedback. Help us out. Let us know if you want something in it, how it's important. Make a case. We consider these things. It's it affects it. And so the two things here that I have: support for SwiftUI. Jason, who I think is here, in previous talks, has really reiterated how important SwiftUI is, and we want it to be supported as much as possible for our features. And right now, there are a couple of limitations for one or two of the property wrappers, and we're thinking about it. It is on our radar. We're constantly thinking about the workaround, how we can change it in Swift, and that's a big piece. And I'm mentioning it now because it is a big piece, and it's important for you all to know. For wildcard, I have this here to give you all sort of like inspiration and to demonstrate the open-endedness of this feature, where what if you have, ORD asterisk anything with a property that satisfies, that might be able to be passed in. We don't have specific plans right now. This isn't a promise. It's just sort of to let you know that there are many directions in which we can take this. If there is one that you see fit and you want to let us know, then we can throw it in the heap and start thinking about it, get the gears turning, and turn it into reality potentially someday. So that's a wrap. I really appreciate everybody listening. If you could hear me, I hope I was coming in loud. Maybe I'll lean forward and shout more. But that's it. Back to you, Shane.
Super. That was great, Eric. Really appreciate that. And we could hear you loud and clear, at least those of us not in Safari, unfortunately. So it seems to work on Firefox as well, too. Dan just said that we were good on Firefox for those of you who are Chrome adverse. But no, that was great. Any questions from the community, please throw them into the chat. We'll take care of them at the end. But now we're going to jump from New York all the way across the Atlantic and to essentially the east coast of Spain to Barcelona. Diana?
Hello, do you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, let me just share the presentation. Do you see it?
Yeah, we can see the full one. So if you want to do the presenter mode, yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Excellent.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Diana, and I'm an engineer in the Cocoa in the team. I'm the latest member to join the team back in January. So it's been almost 6 months since I joined it. And I'm based in Barcelona, but I'm originally from Colombia. So yeah, 10 years here in Barcelona. So this is my first project with the team, and this is the first time ever presenting in a user group or in an online presentation. So bear with me if I get nervous while presenting. Yeah. So let's start. Today's presentation, I'm gonna introduce 2 new property wrappers, AsyncOpen and AutoOpen. These are very simple properties wrappers, which will facilitate integrating your app with MongoDB Rsync. These are going to be 2 new features that will be released in the future and will be available in the Swift UI enhancement module. So the agenda for today will be as follow. I'll begin explaining about a little bit more about MongoDB Rsync for those who don't know it or haven't used it before. Then I will go into Real Init versus Real AsyncOpen, our current APIs. We'll go deeper into the current implementation or API for Real AsyncOpen that is available in our SDK. What is the difference between them? And later we'll show you AsyncOpen and AutoOpen property wrappers. And lastly, I will show you a user case for each one of them. So we need to use it. And then we'll go to the QR session where Eric and I will answer questions if you have it. So what is MongoDB Rsync? So MongoDB Real enables trust type data sync between the Real SDK and MongoDB Atlas. So with MongoDB Real, we are taking advantages of Atlas product and integrated with our Real database. So we get automatically bidirectional data sync from local Real from and to MongoDB Real. We make it simpler to build consistent apps experience for your user, whatever the platform is, iOS, Android, .NET, Reactive, and many more. All data changes are stored in a unified history, and there is an automatically conflict resolution. Data is always consistent, and our reliability is guaranteed. It persists data on disk, and can sync data with are connected, so no need to take care about handling network connection and write networking code. Lastly, you can take back advantages of MongoDB Real application development services for scale and accelerate your development to deliver best-in-class experiences. It's worth mentioning that adding sync into your app that is already using Real database doesn't need more than a few lines of code, doesn't need a lot of implementation. So no extra networking code, and it's pretty easy to set up development in Atlas side. So you also get a free tier in Atlas, so feel free to try it. So our current API for sync users makes you choose between user Real Init and Real Async. I will show you the difference between each one of them. So Real Init returns the local Real on its existing state for any given user and partition. Data will eventually be synced in the background transparently. That's how sync works. On the other hand, if you are using Real AsyncOpen, it will return a Real after successfully syncing data changes from and to MongoDB Real. So documentation suggests that a common pattern is that first, if you are opening the app, you use AsyncOpen, and then later use Real Init, so it doesn't. You don't have to show the loading every time, like Eric said. So we don't want that progress view showing all the time. And we will do the background sync in the background transparently. So opening a Real. So every sample I'm going to show you today is going to be in a Swift UI context because this feature is for Swift UI. So opening a Real is pretty simple for a sync user. You have an app, with a test with an app ID, and you have a current user logged and a partition value. So you just have to open the real with this app and this user and this partition value, and that's all. The real will be returned, and you can inject to the business environment value. That is one of the Swift UI feature we offer. So this will not ensure that the data is synced with MongoDB Real. So as I mentioned before, this will not ensure that data is synced. Maybe it will take some time until data is synced. The next, the list view, we are using our real observer result property wrapper to retrieve result from the real for any type. So we're retrieving all the persons in the database. Because we already injected the environment real into the parent view, we can show the data in this view. So in this case, when we navigate to the list view, this list view, the data is not synced already. So for example, if the data is not synced already, so it might take some time until it's synced. In the other hand, code changes a lot when we use real async. You will need to call the real AsyncOpen API, and then you will have to wait for the real to be available to inject it into your list view. In the meantime, you can show a progress view, but you cannot, you don't have available the real immediately. You have to implement the real AsyncOpen API, where you are gonna get the real when it finishes syncing data from MongoDB Real. And if you want, for example, error handling and you want a progress view of your code, you have more code, like you see it in this. Look, you see it here. So if you want progress notification, you add this on progress notification that will notify how much of the transfer has been done, and then you can publish this data into the view. Also, if you need to publish an error, you have to do it this way. So in the view, you also have to check if the error is available, or if the real is available, or you show the progress view if we are publishing this progress into the. So if we go back to our list view, it's different when we show like you see in the view, already synced. So after we wait for real to be synced, we're showing a progress view. But then when we navigate to the next view, we are showing the data immediately. As you can see, you have to implement a code into your view, and that's why we are introducing AsyncOpen and AutoOpen property wrapper. So let's talk about AsyncOpen. Besides of not adding a lot of code, besides adding a lot of extra code into the view, current API for AsyncOpen, it doesn't look very Swift-like, so it doesn't integrate naturally in a Swift UI view. That's why we're introducing these two property wrappers. They are very easy to implement, as I will show you, into a Swift UI app, and that you can use in more complex use cases. So what are the advantages of this property wrapper? With this property integration of a integration within a Swift UI app, making it easier for the user to open a realm asynchronously without the need of extra code. You get a status update from the progress, the error, when you are when the realm is opened, without the need to add extra publishers. To be like you will be implementing a real AsyncOpen current API, but with more Swift UI style. So as you can see it in here, it's pretty straightforward, pretty simple to implement, and just add the AsyncOpen property wrapper into your view, and then wait for a state from the process. You can, if you get an error, you can show the error view. You will get the error from the property wrapper. If you why have to be open, you can show a progress view. When the realm is finally open, you can inject that realm into our environment so the view is updated. Declaration is pretty simple. You just have to add the and initialize it with a partition value. As simple as that. So what is AsyncOpen? And now I'll show you what is AutoOpen. So AutoOpen and AsyncOpen are pretty similar. Actually, in terms of declaration and implementation are the same. But the difference is that AutoOpen is targeted to apps with offline first use cases. This property wrapper is quite similar to using real init, for example. So, but in case there is an internet connection, this property wrapper will try once to download or to sync your data from the remote. But if you don't have an internet connection, it will return a real that you can use in your view, and then when the connection is recovered, it will automatically update the data in the background. So besides of what the advantages of AsyncOpen, AutoOpen is an easier API. You have less code. You have process notifications, and you magically update the view with synced data. AutoOpen property wrapper will make it easier for the user to choose between asynchronous sync data and opening a new reel. Giving you an offline first approach. With AutoOpen, we are not blocking the user in case there is not internet connection. We'll return a full reel. So later, for you to a reel, and in case there is not internet connection, I'm sorry, I just lose a little bit. With AutoOpen, we are not blocking the user in case there is no internet connection. I will return a reel fully injectable into your view if you don't have an internet connection. So later, when internet connection is recovered, the data will be synced transparently without any extra code. So implementation is the same. So the only difference is behind the curtain. It works differently. That's why we have two different property wrappers. And declaration is the same. You have to initialize it with an app ID, a partition value, and if you want to, you have an optional timeout if you want to set up a connection timeout. So you're wondering in which case should we use each of these property wrappers. I'll give you two examples. For example, you want to develop an app similar to Notes app, and you are using it in two devices. So when you open the app for the first time on a new device, data needs to be synced even once before letting access data for the first time. Then opening the app with the internet connection will try to sync data with latest changes from other devices. But if you don't have an internet connection, you want the user to be able to interact with the data, even though it doesn't have an internet connection. So in that case, you use AutoOpen. In the other case, if you, for example, are developing an online platform game app, you need to have updated data all the time. So when you open that for the first time on any device, you need to sync data with remote data to retrieve the saved states of the game for that user and have it in your device. When you're opening the app with an internet connection, it will require each time to sync this data with remote data. And when you don't have an internet connection, you want to block the user to access to that data because it will create conflicts or you're not going to have the same experience because you have not updated data. So in that case, you are using AsyncOpen. So that's all. Thanks everyone for attending and listening. I hope this new feature will be very useful for you and facilitate integration with MongoDB Realm. So now we go into QA session. I'm sorry if I got a little bit nervous here and there, but yeah.
Not at all, Diana. Not at all. It was great. Thank you so much, both of you, Eric and Diana. Really great information there. I hope everybody could take that in. As I said earlier in the chat, for all of these meetups end up on YouTube within a day or so. So we'll make sure that it's up there so you can revisit this and look at it at your leisure. And when we get a transcript as well too, it will appear later on in our developer hub. There's not necessarily any direct questions in our chat at the moment. There is some discussions. So I might as well just highlight some of the discussions. I think that might open up some more questions there. Thank you. Jason has been on the chat as well too, answering some of them as well. So appreciate that, Jason. I suppose Richard brought up the fact that callbacks in Swift UI Swift can take place on different threads, and we have to just call the dispatch queue main.async to force it back onto the main threads. Do you want to discuss that maybe, Eric, a little bit, or kind of the thoughts on that?
I think Richard hit it pretty well. For this particular feature that I'm working on, anything that would be applying to threading would also be applying to what's happening with the future use of KeyPath filtering.
Cool, great. And and this did get resolved in the chat. Dan was asking about, does it work on Mac OS? And yes, as Jason responded, and a few others, Dan, go for it. It's a godsend to be able to work across platforms now. Do try it, play around it as well too. Kurt, thank you for dropping in that as well. Kurt, you're using it on the Universal Mac, and others are using it on Apple TV and stuff. So this is superb feedback from our community. Kurt did have a further question though. Is AutoOpen similar to checking a cached user to see if there's a local copy of the synced realm and then just start using that right away? Diana, I suppose that's off to you.
Okay, let me just read it again. Which question?
It was Kurt. So he's asking, is AutoOpen similar to just checking for a cached user to see if there's a local copy of the synced realm and then just start using that right away?
We first try to sync data with MongoDB Realm, and if there is not internet connection, check local copy of the synced realm. So it's not like we immediately check if there is already a Realm file. We first try to sync, and then if we are not available to sync, we then check if there is the Realm in our local.
Okay, super.
I don't know if
Kurt,
that answered the question.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Kurt is pretty vocal on the chat sometimes. Kurt, you're more than welcome to jump on here as well too. He gave you a thumbs up, so he's happy enough with that, Diana. So Ian had another one. How to profile the way your app is using Realm Sync and to check how much resources it's using in terms of pricing. So actually, this is a bigger one, right? How can you make sure you're not accidentally doing something very expensive, right? So I don't know, do either of you want to jump on that one, because this is across the house, right?
Well, in terms of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Diana.
No, go ahead, because I don't have any.
So we are on the SDK team, and in terms of like resource use, right, the memory graph is always what I go to in Xcode, but that is obviously like a local use. Ian's question is very specific towards Realm Sync. So I don't know the answer. I was wondering, Shane, do you know?
Well, the key thing, I suppose, like, look, we can see reads and writes on a profile. I suppose, it's really how you architect your app in the first place. And this is something that does come up quite a lot. I mean, most people developing apps these days are concerned, if you've got a free app in the store, and you're putting it out there, and all of a sudden which is a really good complaint. It takes off. So you've got many thousands of users. You are going to incur costs at some point. Now, MongoDB and you know, we have all starting our M0 tiers to get started really easy with your project, and they will scale up. And you know, I'm not on the sales stroke pricing team, so I can't put them out of my hat. But in essence, like, you can manage that, and I think the key thing there is that it's locally to architect your app well, to make sure you're not doing essentially as many syncs and as many calls as you need to be. In essence, what we suggest most apps should open, you know, depending on what you're building, we're going to sync once on open, and then we're going to do activities locally, and then you can decide when you're going, essentially when you want to go and sync that back as well too, if you don't want to sync it all the time, right? But in essence, it's up to you and your own architecture as well. Don't know if that helps you, Ian, solve that question. But it's, you know, in terms of pricing, I think we do have, essentially, there is some pages on the website with pricing and examples and things like that that you can go through to. So Dakari came back with something else, and I'm just following this. So hold on 2 seconds till I make it. So Ian said he's not asking for pricing, architecture app well, but tricky to objectively check this. And I suppose that is the key thing. It is all about the architecture of the app. You don't want a very, very chatty app permanently, because that will essentially, you know, your calls are going to hugely increase depending on the users of your app. Your sync requests are going to hugely increase. And then obviously, you know, that's a bandwidth, that disk space usage, all incur costs at that. Dakari was wondering around what the items that were announced at WWDC, the instruments, would that help us as well too in terms of analyzing the HTTP traffic? Yes, I would imagine so. You know, as a developer in the past, we used to, you know, use proxy tools as well too, to see what our app was doing or what other apps were doing in the background. You could check that as well too. Richard chimed in on this discussion to say that the KeyPath should make things cheaper if you use it right. And I would agree in that respect. Any further thoughts to add, Diana or Eric, on this discussion, which kind of segued off into a different area?
Circling back on Ian's question, I do know you get the high level statistics on how much you're consuming via Atlas. An interesting idea though for a tool that specifically says, hey, I'm doing this call, how much can I trace back in terms of bandwidth? That is interesting. I don't know the answer, sorry, but Shane answered best we could. Specifically, oh, sorry, Clifton.
No worries, no worries.
Anyway, that's all I got, Shane.
Good. So, and Jason has answered yes. So I'm just going to, for those of you maybe listening to this afterwards, really in the YouTube version, you're not going to see the chat that goes on the side. So with the risk of repetition, Ian was wondering, is it possible to use the SwiftUI property wrappers, observed results, etc., with SwiftUI previews?
So yes, you can use it. Like is writing on the chat, we will recommend using an in-memory read when using SwiftUI previews. So yeah, I think there is an example also in the repo of samples, so you can see it how it's done there.
Okay. So that's in the Realm repo with all the example code that we have there. Perfect.
Yeah.
We do that. Look, I think in essence, this has really been great. I'm conscious of time. We're coming up towards the hour. The other thing that I would like to mention out to all people who joined us here today is that 2 weeks ago, we did launch essentially some new Realm data types as well too. We would like you to check those out. So we introduced dictionaries and maps, a mixed data type, sets data type, and also UUIDs. There's some information on that on our developer hub. Please check that out. But the big thing for us, as I mentioned at the beginning, essentially, we've got MongoDB.live coming up on the 13th and 14th of July. So please tune in there, because that's where you're going to hear all our other product announcements. And we've got some really, really exciting new stuff coming down the tracks for our mobile developer community and our Swift community. So once again, it's been superb to have you all here. In particularly, great thanks to Diana and Eric for superb presentations. Thank you so much. For this community, we like to do this all the time. You get access to people on our engineering team, such as Diana and Eric. You'll get access to other people, but we also have partners here as well too. So do join the community, spread the word that we are active and vibrant, and we're going to hold these. Essentially, we've had 2 to 3 a month for the past number of months. A little bit quieter in July due to .live, but it'll pick up again then. So, and we look to broaden this out as much as we can. So it's been superb having you as ever. Thank you so much, Diana, Eric, and everybody who joined. We really appreciate it. So long and take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.